Okay, welcome. I wish I had a song rehearsed to sing you guys, but I don't. So let's just get the show on the road. My name is Mara, and just a little brief story of how we all came to be together today. I've just been doing a little research on the Ferry House. My connection is that I was on the UW sailing team with Gay, and one day he got us all together and said, "Hey, you guys, there's this old house on Evie's Landing, and it's really cool, and my parents have a key to it. You want to go up and go camping?" And we're like, "Okay, yeah." And there's like, oh, by the way, there's no bathrooms, no water, no electricity. And like, okay, cool. So we probably came up, I don't know, 4 or 5 weekends over a period of several years. And, it was a super cool experience. And at the time, I actually, I just thought this is an old house. And then Gay would always tell the story about Colonel Evie. But I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until years later now. And just started kind of poking around all the history of this area. And I realized when I went to the Island County Historical Society to get information about the Ferry House, there's this gap of information. It's like Frank and Lena Pratt owned the home, and then it went to their son Robert, and then there were short-time guests on weekends. But knowing Gay and knowing all of the stories that actually his cousins, Tim and Fred, had also told me, I just know, and you guys all have stories, there is so much that needs to be told about that time period of 44 years of Bud and Martha getting the key to the Ferry House and all these experiences you guys had. So thank you so much for coming. And Hugh actually, hopefully you guys have seen his document, The Stewardship of Earl and Martha Morris. And when he sent that to us about 6 months ago, I looked at the date that they originally came here, and it was 1956. So I did a quick little math problem. I thought, that makes it 70 years. So I called Gay and Hugh, and I'm like, maybe we should do something. So anyway, this is so awesome that you guys all made the time to come and gather together and share some stories about this very special place. And look at the weather. I mean, it's amazing. So, I wanted to start off with some thank yous. We're so grateful to the National Park Service. Gay and I worked with Alexis Freedy, who's the operations manager for Evie's Landing National Reserve. We had several meetings. We applied for a special use permit to hold this gathering. She brought Rick Mischke, who's the facilities manager, on board, and he is the fellow he's not going to hear me say thank you, but he's up front. Brad, he was on site. He's with the National Park Service. He and I believe his name was Philip. They were here yesterday mowing the lawn. They were actually, I don't know if you noticed how clean the windows are. I mean, they were cleaning the windows because they said, if you guys, you're going to want to take some photos, we don't want the windows to be dirty. And then Rick came in and he took the stickers off the windows that say, stay away, so that we could experience the house close to, what it was like when you all used to come up. So we're so grateful. And I wanted to mention, we'll do a follow-up email for everybody because, the National Park Service went above and beyond to make this happen. Time and energy. And so I just want to, we'll just let you guys know if there are some ways that you could maybe make a contribution to just, pay it forward. So that will come later. There are so many different ways that you can support the reserve, not just the National Park Service, but there's Friends of Evie's. All of you guys know how to do like a Google search, right? So anyway, I also want to thank Clara Burns from the Island County Historical Society. She's the archivist, raise your hand, Clara, and collections manager. And I talked to her when we started thinking about this event. I met with her and said, so are there some special things you'd like us to collect at this event for your archives? And she said, well, how about if I just come with the GoPro? So Like, okay, so we're really grateful that you could come, Clara. Also, I want to just do a shout out to Lee James and Lindy Cordes. They are both local historians, raise your hands, who know quite a bit about the Suva and the Pratt family. And anyway, we're really grateful that you guys could join. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started with storytelling. Garbage recycling is over by the beautiful diamond porta potty. You guys all know, so this place is very fragile. I think everyone understands that. Interestingly, we actually, several of us brought tents to set up in case of rain. We're really glad we didn't have to because of the wind, but we were told we couldn't pound stakes in the ground because this is an archaeological site. They have found a lot of evidence of, harvesting that the lower Skagit and other Salish tribes did in this area. So, we just have to be, really careful. Of course, when we all used to come up and party, we never thought about that. But now, now we know better. So, anyway, and that, speaks to just all the work that you guys did, thanks to Earl and Martha, to keep this place standing. What?
Talk into the mic, yeah.
Talk into the mic, okay. Anyway, so Brian is one of our lovely shuttle drivers, and where's Gerald? Gerald is our other shuttle driver. So when you're ready, if you did park up at Ron's house, and thank you, Ron Hansen. I'm not sure if Ron is here, but yeah, so anyway, if you did park up at Ron's house and you need to ride back up to your car, find Brian or Gerald and they will buzz you up there. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention is so many people are bringing so many amazing photos, and I know most of them are not digitalized at this point, but we can all digitalize things by just scanning or taking a photo of them. So we're working on a way that we can gather photos together, and we'll send out more information after the event. But because, I'm sure many of you seen photos and you thought, oh, I love that photo, I'd love a copy. So we'll figure some way to share those photos with everyone. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Rich up to the stage. Come on, Rich.
My name's Rich Erickson. I'm a first cousin to Gay and Hugh Morris.
We can't quite hear you.
Wow.
Louder.
My name is... That's too loud, though.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
My name is Rich Erickson.
Good. There we go.
I'm a first cousin to Gay and Hugh Morris. I came here for the first time probably not long after Bud and Martha got the access to the place. And I remember, I was about 9, and I remember a year or two later realizing that our family was not the only ones that Bud and Martha brought here. It was a shock. But here you all are. Glad to see you, glad to meet you, and glad to be here. I'm to open this up with a blessing. I'm going to make it a blessing of thanksgiving. I am thankful for Mrs. Robert Pratt, whom I never met. I'm grateful that she passed along access to this place to Bud and Martha, or Earl and Martha Morris, my uncle and aunt. And thanks to Gay and Hugh for all the many years we've been together here. I'm grateful for this old house. I'm grateful for this island. It's a refuge from the other side of the water. I'm grateful for this family. I'm grateful for these friends. Just saw for the first time in many years Tim and Jeff Beardsley. That's fun. And I'm thankful for these many, many decades of access to this magic place. And I offer a prayer of thanks to God for giving us these blessings.
I guess I'm the MC. Okay, Fred, come on up. We've
Okay.
got Fred, he's going to talk a little bit about the history of this place. Okay.
Thank you, Mara.
Uh-huh.
Oops. Oh, that's not supposed to do that. I've got a few props with me here. Greetings, everyone. I'm Fred Erickson. I'm honored to be the brother of the guy that just left the podium. And we're cousins to Gay and Hugh Morris. We are nephews to Earl Dillman Morris and Martha Erskine Morris. And Earl, we just called Uncle Bud. That was our family name for him. So if I slip and say Uncle Bud, well, that's what I'm talking about. My middle name is Earl. And I'm named after my uncle and his father, who were both Earl Dillman Morris. Anyway, that's not the history you want to hear from me today. It gets a little involved. I'm very happy to be here. How many of you were actually part of the UW sailing group? Oh, okay. Interesting. All right, thank you. That tells me a lot. I have some props here. First of my props is something I would recommend to you, I think. It's a Wikipedia article on the Ferry House, which is more or less helpful, accurate. What do you think? Archivist. You're the archivist, right? I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Clara.
Clara, yes. That's all right. It's just Colonel Levy's head. Thanks, I don't really, well, I might need that. Thank you. Well, I don't know if you read this. Okay, and I don't know what their source is, but it says, Ferry House, Eby's Landing, Whidbey Island. Well, that's interesting because it used to be called the Eby Hotel or the Eby Inn or the Eby's House. I've seen all those names. One of the oldest residential buildings in Washington. The Ferry House was built in 1860. Not the whole thing, by the way. That's when they first started building it. By Winfield Scott Eby as an inn to provide financial stability for his brother's children. Well, they left some things out. It wasn't just Winfield Scott Eby. His cousin, George Bean, was also involved. And after Winfield Scott died, at a relatively young age, he had consumption, they called it. He died, actually, he went to California. Anyway, it's another long story, but he died down by San Francisco. But George Bean became the what's the word for somebody who takes care of the kids? Guardian, thank you. He became the guardian of Eason, Ellison, and Hetty, they called her. The little girl that was born to Rebecca Eby before she died in 1853. Anyway, he was guardian, and he helped build this structure. Not the whole thing. The part they built is actually, I think it's, who knows, the other side of this wall, this end down here. Then they later added the top floor, the half story, and the parlors were added. And within the structure, you can see some of the walls have wear as if they were exposed to the elements. So it's not all been built like this. In other words, it wasn't built from an architectural plan. Basically, the structure has what they call a vernacular structure, meaning, usually when we say the word vernacular, Rich will tell you more about this if you want to find out. It means common everyday language. Like if you were in England in the Middle Ages and you spoke English, that's the vernacular, as opposed to Latin, which was the more educated language, which you people from the University of Washington probably speak all the time. Latin? Anyway, it's a vernacular structure, meaning everyday resources, like they would cut through the forest, bring logs in, trim them down, make planks, and then stack the planks. It could be horizontal stacking, and that's plank structure, or it could be vertical. Either way, they do it on the ground, and then fasten it with tree nails or pegs. We have some experts here who can tell us more about that, maybe. But it's a vernacular plank-style structure built by pioneers who then would clad it with, is it okay if I touch this wall? They clad it with siding to protect it and provide some insulation. And they might paper the inside of the thing. Last time I was here with park employees was in 2018. I met a couple of people who were involved in restoration, and they let me go upstairs. But you didn't get to do that. They let me go upstairs because I wanted to show them something. There's newspaper on the walls of this room on the end here that came from the San Francisco Tribune. It has sailings of ships. It also has, if you look closely enough in tiny print, a little article updating the readers about something happening in Virginia, a battle going on in the American Civil War. Up there, it's upstairs, Civil War. But the house was built in 1860. So when they added on these structures, they would paper the inside walls with newspaper and sometimes cover it with nicer wallpaper. Colonel Eby didn't live here. His home was across the gully, right over there. You can see it if you walk to the end of the gully here, the ravine. In the field, about halfway between here and the woods, was his home called the Cabins. And as a young boy, I was always fascinated by stories about Colonel Eby. I mean, who isn't? We're sitting here on the edge of Eby Prairie. But it's only been called Eby Prairie for the last 175 years. Not even all that. Because before that, this land was much used by the local Salish peoples, the Clalams from across Admiralty Inlet, who didn't call it Admiralty Inlet. That's a name given to it in 1792 by George Vancouver. But the Clalams would come across, set up camps here, harvest camas roots, plant potatoes. They were taught how to do that by the Hudson's Bay Company, and hunt for deer. And they made use of this ground. So did the lower Skagits, like the people of Snakeland's village over on Penn's Cove. And the southern part of the island, so were the Snohomish, and the Duwamish, and the Snohomish in the upper part of the island. I mean, these people were joined by clans, kinship. They were generally much more peaceful than what we call the northern Indians. The northern Indians were kind of like the local Vikings, right? We have some historians here. They would come raiding, taking slaves and stealing property, and they were just a problem for whoever lived down here in the southern part of the Salish Sea. By the way, I enjoy sailing myself, and I have to say, I'm glad that geographers are now calling this whole stretch of water from Alaska down to Tumwater the Salish Sea, so that you realize you don't want to change names just because you cross the 49th parallel, right? You guys agree? It's a body of water that has a lot of things in common. The kinds of sea life, and the Native American peoples, the Northwest Coastal Indians, had a very rich culture. Densely populated villages, beautifully carved canoes, and in the northern waters, they had totem poles. Not so much down here, but basically a very rich culture that pretty much got wiped out in one generation by mostly of the coming of Americans across the Oregon Trail, bringing disease with them, to which they had no resistance. So we call this Eby's Prairie, but 200 years ago, it wasn't. It was land that the local people knew very well and made good use of. When Colonel Eby staked a claim here, we're in the middle of the western fourth or so, or fifth of his claim. You can still see it from space. The roads delineate this 1 mile by 1 mile section of land that he claimed under the Oregon Donation Land Act of 1850. It was technically not legal because the Indians' title to the land had not been extinguished yet. So as I say in my paper, which I have a few copies around here, they plowed first and wrote treaties later. And that's how it worked. However, the local people got along with him, he got along with them, and his cabins was built over there. What did it look like? Well, we have a diagram that was given to us in 1892 by his niece, Elmira Enos. I can't remember her name. Wright. Anyway, Wright Enos. His niece made a diagram and wrote a description of the cabins, and the people of the Parks Department very kindly published it in a form that's, well, I have here someplace. Oh, by the way, this drawing by Paul Gustin is over there with all the pictures. I've got a copy too if you want to see it. Also of great historic interest is this photograph of 3 boys in a carriage. And the boys are, well, the guy in the middle is Rich, who just spoke. The guy to his right is me. The guy to his left is our brother Bill, who had to be in Alaska this week. Anyway, they were sitting in a carriage over there by the barn. Hey, Gay, you, where's the barn? Anyways, it was over there someplace. And the carriage, I think, was rolled in and out of the machine shop next to the barn. They didn't keep it here, I don't think. But like a lot of things in the property, it was stolen, it disappeared. But not before we had rides in the carriage. Aunt Martha took a bunch of his kids and gave us a ride to the end of the drive here in the carriage. She had to do it because it was a horseless carriage. Sorry. But then she got, yeah, I know it's bad. Got to the end of the driveway and we helped her turn it around, and we're looking forward to Aunt Martha pulling us back to the Ferry House. No, she got in the carriage and we kids gave her a ride back. Not a horseless carriage, but it was a horseless carriage, it wasn't a kidless carriage. Now what's interesting about this drawing by Paul Gustin in 1921 is you can see a walkway which is not there anymore, it's overgrown. Rich tried to find it once with his grandsons, and it has a picket fence going along the edge of it, and it goes up this near side of this gorge here next to us, this gully. The old track was actually up the other side, the way you got to the cabins. You'd get up to the end of the gorge, and there was a spring there, and Indians would sometimes stop to come here just to get water, fresh water, or to move from here to Cove Land, Penn's Cove. Well, it was up the other side of that gully that a party of Tlingit Cake Indians passed on the night of August 11th, 1957. I could give you more details, but I'd be up here a long time. And it was like 11 or 12 midnight. The Ebys had a dog named Rover. Who'd have thought? Actually, I'm not sure if I've seen any dogs named Rover in history except for that one. If you guys know about another one, let me know. But Rover barked, woke up Colonel Eby, and if you look under the shelter there, I've set up an easel, which I got when I was a kid so I could do oil painting. Only when Aunt Martha came to our house, I said, oh, look, I got a tripod for my birthday. It's like, Freddie, she said, it's an easel. She's a trained artist, so of course, she was right. She was a wonderful artist who actually did sculptures. There's another picture over there. Here's one of my pictures of the sculpture she did by collecting driftwood, walking it up here and nailing it to the wall. Now, the Ebys weren't alone. Colonel Eby's first wife, Rebecca, had died 4 years before. He had remarried. It's a sensible thing to do in the frontier, where husbands and wives sometimes lost their lives just crossing the Oregon Trail. So you make a new union, so you got someone to take care of the kids and do the cooking. He married Emily Sconce. She became Emily Eby from Olympia. And he brought her home with her daughter Anna. They were in the house. And 2 visitors. The territorial marshal was there, Mr. Corliss, and his wife, Lucinda. And they were sleeping in the far bedroom. The closer bedroom to the walkway entrance had Ellison and Eason. The boys were disturbed by the racket. When Colonel Eby came out onto the porch, he saw the Indians. What do you want? He feared the worst. They looked armed. They looked dangerous. He pushed Emily back through the door to the kitchen. This information is on that chart that I made. And they latched the door. But the Indians fired muskets at him. Apparently struck him, I think, on the side of the head. He was injured, wounded. What did he do? Look at my diagram, you'll see it. He ran around the house to the far side, drawing the Native American attackers away from the entrance. I think he did it intentionally. But he arrived at a window by the parlor. The Corlisses were in the parlor as well as the boys, and they saw him outside. He was stunned. They called to him. He did not respond. He went to the corner, and then he ran back the other direction. Why? I think he knew that his family had to escape through that window, that far corner, closest to the woods over there. Less than a half mile through those woods was the Ingalls house, William B. Ingalls' home. And there was William Ingalls and 3 of the Hills brothers, and they had muskets, and they could help respond to this emergency. And through the window went Mrs. Corliss, dashed down that road to the Ingalls place. She knew where to go to get help. Marshal Corliss held the door shut against the Indians and then allowed the rest of the family to escape through the window. Look at the diagram on my chart, and you'll see it. And they escaped. We know these details because of his niece's recorded information. Elmira left this information. She wrote it down in 1892. Now, I was a math teacher as well as a history teacher, and I know that 1892 is 35 years after Eby was killed. We might think, well, that sounds like a long time. Is it? We're here on the 70th, where's Mara? Was it 70th anniversary, right, of Bud and Martha getting the key to this place? 70th. Well, divide it by 2. 35. That's how many years between Colonel Eby's death and the record you'll see on that chart in there. It wasn't that long. She remembered perfectly well. Look in the chart and see. And here's where my uncle's body's laid dead, but without his head. These Native Americans came from Russian waters. They're part of the Tlingit peoples. We call them the Cake Indians. I'm not sure what they called themselves. Not cake as in birthday cake, but K-A-K-E. And a friend of Colonel Eby's, Captain Dodd, was able to get up there in those waters and found out that these people had not Eby's head anymore. That was buried on Smith Island. And I don't think it was this Smith Island over here. Hugh and I figured out it's up in Russian waters. I forget the name of the river. Anyway, they didn't have the head anymore, but they had carefully removed a full scalp. This Captain Dodd recovered for some trade items. And he brought it back and presented it to the family. Winfield Scott Eby has a sad haunting sort of description of that recovery and the return. As a kid, I always imagined them digging up the grave and burying the head with it. No, they didn't. The family had his scalp, and they kept it for a while in like this wooden box. The last I hear of it was in early 1900s, still in the possession of a niece of Colonel Eby's in San Francisco. Well, we gave lectures on this every year. I taught Washington State history, and I tell the kids the Eby story. And I'd give them more details than I can give you here. But at that point, I would tell them, I researched what happened to Colonel Eby's scalp, and I found out where it's located. Then I reached inside my podium, pull out a wig, and say, and here it is. And then I accidentally let go of it and land on the table in front, and the girl said, ah, it touched my hand. It's terrible. Poor kids had nightmares. But you know, you want to make history come alive, so to speak. Anyway, that's some of the background here. There's a lot more. Here's some more history here, real quick. Here's a picture of some boys and girls poking their heads out of these two windows up here. And some of them are here. If you're in this picture, raise your hand. Rich, Sue, my sister, my brother. Some Beardsleys are in there, I think. Okay, should be Tim. Yeah, okay. So, what's that? You always lived on the other side? I don't know. I think. Okay, but we lived upstairs when we were here. We would come every year. Now, see, is it Darva Church? Is that the lady who's head of the? What's her official capacity? She's executive director of the Island County Historical Society. I met her and talked with her last fall, and I was very delighted to meet her. She asked me to do something for her. Darva Church said, well, would you read this certain book and tell me what you think? Others have asked me to read this book, including Mara. What'd you think of it?
Well, I initially didn't buy it because the Ghosts of Whidbey Island.
Yeah.
So, but it's amazing.
Hugh, you've read it.
Very worthwhile.
It's.
You want more detail, take a plunge into this book. I wrote to Victoria Ventrichet. I wrote to her and said, I read your book, and I really approve. You know, you think, oh, ghost stories, ghosts, fiction, historical fiction. Usually historical fiction is heavy on the fiction and light on the historical part. I love reading history, but historical fiction, I usually stay away from it. But I read this book, and I realized she did her homework. She relies heavily on the journals of Isaac and Rebecca Eby and Isaac and Emily Eby. Relies heavily on contemporary sources. Normally when you read historical fiction, you get this little thin plate of history, not well represented, and a big pile of fiction on top of it, because the author wants to get across their own perspective and translate 21st century values back to the whatever century they're writing about, right? Am I right? Okay. Well, she does the opposite. I said, you did the opposite. You have this thin fabric of fiction, and the only fiction she resorts to is building some characterizations of some of the main characters, which are pretty believable, actually. And then on top of that, the reader gets a really full plate of good history. And what's that a history of? Basically, the same thing I wrote about in my paper. It's about Colonel Eby's family. It's about Indian-white relations here on the island. It's about the values of the native Salish culture that was here before the white men came. It's about the events leading up to that August 11th across the draw over there. So, unfortunately, we no longer have the cabins to go to visit. So we're meeting here at the Ferry House instead. Colonel Eby's house is gone, right? Or is it? Actually, George and Winfield, when they built this place, they repurposed lumber from the planks parts of the structures of Evie's cabins. I imagine them carrying it across the little bridge that used to be over here at this end of the gully, hauling it over here and building this structure using a vernacular pioneer plank style construction. This is Colonel Evie's house. Part of it is. So if you believe in ghosts, he still haunts this ground. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Fred. I totally agree with that Ghosts of Whidbey book. It's incredible if you want to just dive deep into all of this history. So next up, Tim Beardsley is going to tell us some stories.
I'll read you a story.
All
If I don't fall off the porch.
Yeah, great. And then we will do our toast.
My name's Tim Beardsley. I'm also a first cousin of the Morrises. My mother, oh, can't hear it.
Closer to your mouth.
My name's Tim Beardsley.
There you go.
Get this up for you. My mother and Martha were sisters. And so we've been, oh, that's better. Been here since it started, been to 56. And one of the things that we've always enjoyed is our business up here. Closer still.
That's perfect.
All right, I have a
Put your mouth
cold.
on it. Fine.
Step on it?
Put your mouth on it.
Oh, God, no. Anyway, I wrote a bunch of stuff for Mara when she was gathering stuff about the 44 years we had possession of the place. And if everyone does remember, the big barn that was sitting out here is kind of central to that story. So here's what I wrote. Years ago, we suffered a fire in the old barn in the later 60s. This was a structure that inevitably drew kids in the early years as one of the several structures that formed a farming compound. The other buildings were shelters for various older horse-drawn farm machines and carriages. They were like big carports for these items, and we'd check them out and, of course, play on the carriages in them. They weren't built as sturdily as the barn and disappeared from the scene along with the farming implements and carriages. Only the barn remained standing. Hay wasn't farmed nor needed without horses in the stable, but what was left covered the floor of the main room inside. Had a ceiling that went up to the roof with crisscrossing beams overhead. Someone had added a rope that could be swung on with a jump at the end into the hay piles. There you go. End of the story. Very good. All right. Let's see, where were we here? One year in the late 60s, a fire started in the hay near that swing and the side of the barn. Speculation after was that a kid was delinquently playing with matches and started the conflagration. We were all in the house in the living room when several kids ran in exclaiming about the fire. This was a serious concern due to the age of the house, the barn, and the tinder-like dryness. We leapt to our feet, charging out to bring the fight. I manned the cistern, hauling up bucket after bucket of cistern water. I'd pour its contents into whatever pan, pot, or vessel was present. Most of this water didn't make it to the fire, being spilled on the run to the barn, but every bit helped. Some of our firefighters suffered a face or pant leg of water in the exuberance of stopping further damage. My brother, a recent driver, was dispatched to get the fire department on its way. He initially jumped into Bud's creaky 1957 VW microbus, itself a slow but determined and still creaky ride. Bud implored him to take a faster car, which he did. Soon the fire department tanker and men showed up to drown the fire and be sure it was completely out. During the conflagration, my dad was unaccounted for since the last we'd seen of him was in the living room surrounded by old magazines left at the landing by long-ago tenants. As the tanker retreated down the driveway, he came out of the house, flapping residual smoke away with an old magazine, wonderingly amazed at our state of weariness and dirtiness. He'd been preoccupied with his reading and missed all of the action. I thought it all was reminiscent of Mr. Prothero in Dylan Thomas's poem, A Child's Christmas in Wales. I love my dad. R.I.P. That's it.
Okay, so
once more into the speaker here.
Talk loud.
Today we gather to celebrate the 70th anniversary of my beloved aunt and uncle's stewardship of Whidbey's Landing. Back in 1956, they had journeyed to Whidbey Island for an adventure. During their travels, they came across the Ferry House. Intrigued as they must have been, they tracked the ownership to Lena Pratt. Meeting with her, they had to have charmed her greatly with their commitment, plans, and appreciation for the marvel of the Ferry House. As their meeting ended, Mrs. Pratt handed them the key and said, "It's yours to do with." And they did for 44 years. It was 44 years of family, friends, and fellow travelers gathered for fun, food, walks, stories, storms, and fair days. I don't recall any visit not being pleasant and enjoyable. I always left looking forward to another visit. For this, I credit my Aunt Martha and Uncle Bud. They were the glue and motivation to hold it and us together here in this magnificent setting. My memories here extend from 56 to about 2000 when Robert Pratt died, and we lost the stewardship and use of this marvelous place. All those experiences I treasure, and I'm saddened that we've lost them both. The two lovely people who made it happen, and the special place Whidbey's is to all of us. Slunkaful. Please join me in raising a glass, a toast for Aunt Martha, Uncle Bud, the Ferry House, and all of us together. Sláinte.
Right. Thank you, Tim. So Gay has a few memories. I think I mentioned that, I started reaching out to different people to ask questions about their memories from the Bud and Martha Morris years in the Ferry House. And it just sort of got this synergy going. I told Gay that, I talked to Fred, who had some writing to share, and then Tim started doing some writing, and then Gay said, "Oh, well, that makes me want to do some writing." And so I invite you all to, hopefully you can get motivated here to, think about some stories and share. But anyway, Gay has some memories he'd like to share. I think he wrote these on the beach in Mexico.
No, I wrote some childhood memories, and there's a couple copies over there. You can read those, or I can send them to you if you want to read it. But that's not what I'm going to say now. Okay, here we go. Anyway, thank you all for coming today. This is really wonderful, and thank you so much, Mara. Mara was the real instigation of this celebration. I'm just going to read my last little stanza of what I wrote. It's kind of like the meaning of Whidbey's Landing to me. So, what did it all mean for a young kid and his family? We were extremely fortunate to have been part of this place. Countless treasured memories were created here. It's one of the most beautiful places on our planet. Whidbey's is part of our lives, not just for the Morris family, but for all the friends and relatives who enjoyed being here and helping in our stewardship. The Ferry House was never a burden. It always needed work, but it was fun work that we all wanted to do. The place is like a member of our family, a friend, a living place. Excuse me. Always here, ready for the next gathering. Whidbey's was a huge aspect of our youth. We were hopefully an important contributor to its continuation through some very turbulent times, and even to its existence now. The Ferry House is in very good hands now, thanks to the folks at the National Park Service. For me, my mom being pregnant with me exactly 70 years ago. So this May 29th is the actual date. So 70 years ago, I can say that Whidbey's Landing, excuse me, is truly in my blood. In the nostalgic words of, excuse me here, of Lennon and McCartney, Whidbey's Landing is in my ears and in my eyes. In my life, I can say Whidbey's Landing is truly part of what represents the meaning of the word home. So again, thanks everyone for coming. And Hugh, you probably want to say something. But my special thanks to Mrs. Lena K. Pratt. Thanks everyone.
Hello again, everyone. I did this book about 5-6 years ago, a little retirement project, but it started with just going through my parents' slides of all the times that we were here and other times, and organizing some thoughts and recounting some history, and hopefully some of this inspired Mara to put this together, and really thank her for doing the heavy lifting to put this together today. But I did the origin story, which Tim really hit the high point of. Just the photographs are amazing because they captured the state of the house before Mrs. Pratt says it was yours to do with. And it was in sad shape, and it really needed the TLC that Bud and Martha offered, and all the friends. I'm going to find one passage, though. And beyond the pictures, it was interesting, some of the correspondence with the owner who lived in Seattle and really seemed like he had no interest in the place, and he was somewhat confrontational. Yeah, here. So this is a piece of the book. In a letter to Robert Pratt, Bud and Martha wrote, and I'm wondering which of them wrote it. It sounds a lot like my mom, but my dad was also a good writer. Even with these disturbing things having taken place, and she's talking about the vandalism, and I talk about that in the book, that we went through a really bad period, probably 68 to 76 in that period, where it started with hunters coming here and just camping out during season, and it got worse. It was anti-establishment period, a lot of destruction. One year my dad replaced 150 window panes. Just amazing destruction, really pointless. But even with these disturbing things having taken place, and the heartbreak of it all, you come up here and it's sad to see that kind of destruction. Still, she said, Whidbey's Landing is a very beautiful place, and it has meant more than we can say to us, to our sons, and to our friends. And that's what you all are. And appreciate your being here and all your help through the years, keeping this place standing, because I think that was really my point here, is without their care, this house would not be here now. But appreciate y'all coming out. Hopefully get to visit more. Thank you.
Copies of this sent, should I say something that
Sure.
would be okay?
Yeah.
That was really great.
Mara made a good point, is if you want a copy of the book, let me know and I can do another printing or something, or we can just send it electronically, whatever your preference is. But I was going to give a few of the printed copies to the close friends that helped us all through the years. But
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, let's give Hugh another hand, because it truly was his work that inspired this. I kept asking Dave, so tell me more about when your parents came and got the key from Mrs. Pratt. And he was like, well, I don't know if he goes, you should talk to my my brother, I think he wrote something up, and that was when, we looked at this, and we're like, 1956? Did the quick math. Anyway, thank you. So I want to open up the mic to, if anybody else has stories they want to tell, some memories. We can just sit and casually visit. Anybody else? Okay, we've got
Greg Morris.
Greg Morris. Okay, thanks. Greg, come on up.
Hello, my name is Greg Morris. My dad, John Morris. Long Morris family. Anyhow, my memories here were sailing with Gay and Hugh, staying in all the rooms. I totally remember all the newspaper coated walls and everything, reading them, looking at them. I totally remember all the dates and stuff. It was really fun. I do remember the barn that was over there. We used to play in the barn. So that was still standing. There was an outhouse over here. We had I don't know how many family reunions we had here too. It was a really good time. So it was always fun to come out here and had a blast. So I appreciate all the memories and for setting this up and seeing everybody. Some people I remember, some people I don't, but it's all good. We get to know each other again and appreciate having us out. So thank you.
Oh, there goes my phone. Hi, my name is Jill Stewart, and I was part of the UW sailing team. So I kind of, we got the opportunity to come here late 70s through the 80s. Probably close to 92 maybe was our last visit, I'm not sure. But anyway, we got to come up multiple times. Sometimes we would come up in the winter, and it was cold. And we'd all just be in the main parlor there with the fireplace blazing. And we had so many great times up here. But one time that really sticks out to me was when Coco, who is a big gardener, so I can't, this must have been maybe mid 80s, but I'm not sure. She grew some great big zucchinis. And I don't know whose great idea, Gay or Coco, was, we need to have zucchini cars, and we are going to race these cars down the hill. So Gay cut out some wheels out of plywood or just random pieces of wood and some doweling, and we punched the doweling through the zucchinis and glued the wheels on. And we raced those zucchinis down the hill over here. It was just so much fun. We played baseball here in the field. And
The sailboat regattas.
And oh my gosh, the guys were really into these actual sailboats. What they call them, 1 meters. They were pretty big, right, Gay? Where'd Gay go? They were pretty big, right? Where'd Gay go? The UW 1 meter, exactly. And we all go down to the lagoons down by the beach by Casey there. And the ladies would sit on the beach and watch the guys go running around the lagoons chasing after their boats. And I don't know if you ever got a regatta off or even a whole race, but boy, you burned up a lot of energy. But just so many great memories, so many great sunsets up on the bluff and walks and just fabulous memories. And I was lucky enough, I got to bring my young children up here. So anyway, that's all I got to say.
I'm Kathy Mathena. I was Hayes and we got involved a lot with the Morrises, came up here from the church. And one of my favorite memories is of when they had a big jug of wine that for the whole party of people, and they dropped it down into the cistern to get it cold, and it fell off the end of the rope. And they spent all afternoon on their bellies with a fish hook or a boat hook, fishing stuff out of the cistern, trying to get that thing out of the cistern. I remember that.
Okay, I'm Dorothy Hayes, Kathy's sister. I'm going to go backwards in time for you college students don't know how to have fun. Because when we were kids, oh my gosh, we would play. Raise your hand if you ever played tanks upstairs there. No? Oh yeah, yeah. These two boys, we get in the far back, and we'd all lay out our sleeping bags. They made sure, okay, everybody, okay. The adults would be downstairs, and then in the morning, first they'd tell spooky stories about Colonel Eby and where's my head, and then they'd expect us all to sleep. But then in the morning, you'd hear this. What's that? Tank. And they'd go rolling over the hole. And then they'd roll it, and then they'd, and the engine would all of a sudden stop. And they'd be plastered on top of you, and you'd be trying to get out of your sleeping bag. Oh my gosh. I can't believe. Were we the how about a snipe hunt? Did everybody ever go on a snipe hunt? Yes, yes. Oh my God. That was out in the fields there. They'd go out to where the grass was about yay high, and they'd take the littlest kids who didn't get it yet. Really? You guys were never on a snipe hunt except for, yeah. And so they'd say, okay, you've never been on a snipe hunt? They'd take us up there, and the whole idea was the snipes had to come down to where, they had to hold the flashlights, and then everybody would just disappear and leave us. I know, my mom didn't like that game either. And then we would run in the fields until there was, thank you. We would run into the fields until dark, and when we would blow our nose, literally, do you remember that? Blackness would come out because of all the black dirt that we had run through all day long. And then I was lucky enough to be able to come back when my husband and I were here. And this one, if you've got weak ears, you better cover him. But he was not much of a hiker. And I wanted to go hiking up to the bluff. Of course, what would you do when you come up to Eby's Landing except for go up to the bluff, right? Hey, yeah, no, I don't want to walk. Yes, trust me, it's beautiful up there. You want to go up. No, I don't want to go up. Okay, do you see that barn up there? There's something really nice that's going to happen in that barn if you hike up there. And I bet I'm not the only one who had some fun up there in that barn and picked some hay out of their hair. Thank you very much. But the best part of all, is that you guys shared this with so many people. And thank you.
Never look at that bar in the same.
I always wondered why there were 2 seats in the outhouse.
Okay. I'm Leah Molnar, but Morris. Greg, who talked first, is my older brother. There's 4 of us. We're John Morris's offspring, and Uncle Bud is our great uncle, and he and I share the same birthday, May 2nd. We're 50 years apart, and so I always remember that special thing about Bud. I can remember specifically as a kid coming here 2 different times, and we were so excited because we got to be on the top story, which any house that had a top story as a kid, I was like, man, they've made it like, because we live in a rambler, and so like, oh my gosh, and we get to be on the top story. Yes. I also wondered why there were 2 holes in the outhouse, and I thought that was the coolest thing, that there was an outhouse instead of like a flushing toilet. That was, woo, that was exciting. I also want to share that this place has really meant, this area has meant a lot to me growing up, and then also now having 3 kids of our own and bringing them here. They love this place too. Especially my youngest daughter, she's 15 now, but this is a very special place to her. And actually we came about maybe a month and a half ago and peeked in the windows. And I just love that it continues on. And I also was looking, my dad's got a video of, like with no sound, but of people, I don't know, maybe from the 50s. It's so fun to pick out the people too. So it's a legacy. And I also thank you for sharing it with us. Because it's still being passed on. So thank you.
I've had the pleasure of coming to Eby's Landing since I was, I think, about 6. And our families tracked with the Morrises and the Hemps, and we got to meet the Ericksons. So I have a few scattered memories to share with you. I think Earl, which is what we called him, Mr. Morris is what we called him, till we got to be of a certain age, statistically followed the weather in Washington over years to determine that the first 2 weeks of August were always the best time to take a vacation. And I think one year we joined them for a week during that time period here, and along with many other house parties and gatherings and Memorial Days and Labor Days. I think one of the things that has struck me the most is the art of the Morrises. My mother once had lunch with Martha on the beach, and she came back and she goes, I have just had the most wonderful lunch on a piece of driftwood. I said, well, what did you have? I had a tomato with salt and a hard-boiled egg. Kind of what Martha would call a little something. But the 2 of them were both so solid and so effervescent. And the art that they did and made was everywhere that you saw, in the paintings and the gatherings of people, the decor in their home, and really the art of creating community. I always thought when I was a kid that if I could sew all the Queen Anne's lace together, I would have a beautiful wedding dress. I had never figured out how I was going to do that, but I had the distinct pleasure of being married in the living room in 1981. But just such lovely people. And I also have very fond memories of what came to be called the Trans Swimming Hole Regatta during a certain period of our childhood, in which boat design and speed took on new meanings. My dad was a great chronicler and photographer, and after he passed away, I scanned many of his photographs. And I knew there were many photographs of Eby's, but I could only recall putting one set of albums somewhere. And 2 days before we drove up here, earlier this week, I found 460 digitized photos of the Morrises, a wonderful episode called The Experiment in International Living, which took place here thanks to Cy Noy and his students. And it was so crazy to realize how central this art and setting has been. Thank you.
Yep. Well, I'm Jeff Beardsley, and I've been coming here since I was a very small child. And I wanted to point out a couple of things. You talk about architecture. This porch wasn't here. None of the front fascia was there. None of the front fascia had been put up. That was, I think it started with a movie that they filmed in part here called Snow Falling on Cedars. So they sort of reconstructed what used to be kind of like what it looks like now, but that was all gone. This house has, I believe, 4, if not 5, chimneys, and all the ones on the outside were so tore up by the wind and the mortar destruction and the erosion of the brick that an earthquake started to shatter it, and then the weather took them. When we came up here as a kid, because of all of the farming activity, the wind and the dust and the dirt had built up. So all of this fascia down here is new, and the park department should be congratulated for the foundation of this place, because that's the real thing that kept the house together. It was starting to break between this section and the T. You could see some things slipping in the stairways on the inside. The windows were terrible. The fact that the walls are not connected to the floors, we found that out by climbing underneath, digging a hole, because the dirt had poured in and rotted the cedar logs that were sitting on rocks, and that was the foundation for this place. And they got in, and my uncles were jacking up they thought they were jacking up the house, but they come to find out it was just the floor. The floor was bubbling up and the walls weren't moving because they're not connected. I don't know what they used to mill the wood, but they're continuous pieces of about 1.5 inches thick by about 12, 24, whatever it is, 24 feet to them. That's all just one board on the outside under this siding. And the reason that the newspapers was to keep the wind out, because any crack at all the house would just breathe. So they put the newspapers up on the wall for insulation more than anything, just to stop the wind, because it's such prevalent. And then they put the muslin, and then it was wallpaper. And across the years, with the bad roof and the weakening of the thing, and all of the fact that the house was breathing without anybody in it for many, many years, the muslin started to rot, the wallpaper dripped down, and you got to those newspapers that someone brought up. And I remember as a kid, what fascinated me was certainly it's Civil War type newspapers, but I just distinctly remember reading about an Indian attack over in Union Gap over by Yakima. And that's real history, and it feels like you're there. And that's how old this is. This is one of the oldest places in Washington that's been, that's continuously inhabited. And to think that that's as old as it gets, knowing how old Europe is, how old Florida is, how old California is, this is a really, really unique place. And again, if you look, this depression was not here. This was all nettles and plants that had grown up, just volunteered. And it goes all the way around the house. And the park department is what saved this building. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bettina Malure. I'm part of the UW.
You can raise it up.
Hello, I'm Bettina Malure, and I've been appointed to take your picture. So I'd like to take a pano. You can stay right where you're at, but it'll take a couple minutes. Okay? So just smile as my camera scans you, and thank you.
While she's doing that, I'll entertain you with my story. I just did a walk around the house. And I was thinking about, I'm Sue Erickson Deischer. I'm related to the two guys that up here and were long-winded. I was raised with three of them like that, plus my dad. So, I'm used to it, but anyway, I walked around the house and I got to thinking about the fact that when we first came here, I was a young kid and my playmate was Chris Beersley, Gay and Hugh's other cousin, on the other side, Martha's side, and we had many fun holidays here. Chris and I were the only two girls, basically, with about 7 or 8 boys. So, we tended to use our, we'd fantasize more than the boys were. We weren't playing baseball. We weren't doing that kind of thing. We were dreaming. That's what girls do. But as the years went by, I brought my girlfriends here for some of these weekends. And then I brought boyfriends here for some of these weekends. And then I brought a husband here for some of these weekends. And then I brought my kids here for some of these weekends. And then I brought my grandkids here for some of these weekends. That's how old I am. Anyway, so it's been part of our lives growing up here, and we're very, very thankful to Bud and Martha to find this wonderful, wonderful place in this beautiful world, and all the beautiful, beautiful memories we have, all of us. I appreciate it, and I thank them very much. Thank you.
In the 60s, and it was a little different, way back when. But I grew up in a house designed by Bud Earl Morris with panels that were fabricated for the roof panels by Peter Builder, Leah's dad. My mother was an artist. I remember spending many days out in I don't remember what she called it, the studio. My mom was, what was it, Leah? Well, we had peonies, a peony shed, but at Martha's, the studio, okay, where she had an offset printer, and my mom did wood block every year. And anyway, coming out here as a very young person and kind of in a fog at the time, it was just something special. I mean, all these memories just came flooding back, about what it was like. And I remember riding my bicycle up here once with a friend, and we slept in the barn. And the old Victrola. Anybody remember any of those tunes? Barney Google. Yeah. And then, there was something else I wanted to say, but. It's just amazing. I babysat Gay and Hugh when there was. I wasn't a very good babysitter probably, but just all these great memories, and just I just want to thank you all for sharing that, and I just had to share this. Yeah, thank you. That's a mic.
Oh, okay. I don't know what it's. That's your mic. Okay.
Hi, my name's Steve Noy. I had the great pleasure of coming up here starting in the mid-60s, and we had the hunting lodge up there at the edge of the woods. And you know, somebody a time or two ago mentioned community. And I'm kind of doing my own little panorama photo in my mind, my little Kodak moment. And I'm realizing, you got married here. His mom provided the flowers. Her folks are buried up on the hill. So are Gay and Hughes folks. That's kind of the definition of community and home and place. And the adventures that we had here as kids. The barn swallows dive bombing us, and you make sure you didn't get a little decoration extra. The mosquitoes having a feast on us. The kids upstairs on the sleeping bags hearing the uproarious laughter coming up from the floor from the adults downstairs having such a good time. I look around here, and you guys all made the effort to get here today. You came across the water to get here. And you guys probably remember that old Victrola. There was a couple of them I hear. And it wasn't for the stereo effect, it's because one would work at a time, and they'd fix it, and they'd get the other one going. And 4 or 5 years ago, we had to clear out my mom's house, and we got rid of our Victrola, but we managed to salvage one record, and that record was Barney Google. And I have come up with a somewhat simplified version of Barney Google. You're welcome to attempt to sing along. It's just the choruses and stuff, but I think we can give it a little rousing send-off here. And the memories of this place are what we're all built of. You know, we came of age here. We made romances. Romances disappeared. All the good things that make a life happened on this hallowed ground. And because Bud and Martha had the foresight and the guts to ask somebody, can we fix this up and use it? We ended up getting the same kind of situation with the hunting lodge up there. It was in rough shape. It needed a lot of work. And Albert, the caretaker for the Pratt family, ended up being a shirt-tail relative. That's what community is about. Finding out the overlap in our lives and making the best out of it. And we have rehearsed exactly 0 minutes, so please hold your applause till the very end, if at all. Like they said in that wonderful movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Where Art Thou? Somewhere in the neighborhood of sea. Barney Google, Google the island. Barney Google had a wife 3 times his size. She sued Barney for divorce. Now he's sleeping with his horse. Barney Google. That get a squeeze, that girl has no enemies. Barney Google with a googly eye. Barney Google with a googly eye. Barney Google was the luckiest of guys. Barney fell into the mud. He'd come up with a diamond stud. Barney Google with a googly eye. Barney saw his face. He said, you go to the other place.